We're going to start off now. I just want to start off by welcoming everybody. I'd like to also welcome any new members and guests that we have, and I'm really hopeful that soon, one of these days, at some point, we'll actually be able to welcome you in person and see you in person when we have lunch at Mid Pines. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jay Emery, and I'm co-president along with Joan Matula of the League of Women Voters of Moore County. And we have a really, I think what's going to be a very informative program. I really like to take this moment to thank our speakers for taking time out of their schedule today to talk to us this morning. I know they're probably all really busy. So we're going to start off with saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So you should see that on your screen right now, and we'll say it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Agnes Gioconda and Marcy Katzman, who are our two members who have arranged for today's meeting. So we thank them for that. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And Agnes and Marcy, don't forget to unmute yourselves.
Okay. I think I'll begin. I'm unmuted, I believe, if everyone, as long as everyone can hear me. And I think one thing that we hear on the news all the time now is how the small businesses and local businesses are suffering through this crisis. So we wanted to hear firsthand from from local business women who are dealing with this crisis. And the first speaker that we have is Mary Beth Poplick, who is the executive director of the Sunrise Theater. And just as a way of background, Mary Beth moved here from Cleveland, Ohio with her golf pro husband and young sons 20 years ago. And she became the executive director of the Sunrise Theater in January of 2019. But she had 35 years of experience in marketing and business management in medical, pharmaceutical, and textiles. The Sunrise has always been a special place for the Poplick family, beginning with her son's participation in summer camps in the Missoula Children's Theater when they first arrived in North Carolina. Mary Beth was a volunteer and a frequent guest at the Sunrise with more stage and tailored dance performances, as well as movies and concerts. Her passion for her job and for the Sunrise is evident whenever you talk to her. She has been a wonderful partner and supporter of the League, and we are excited to hear her plans for guiding the Sunrise through the crisis and to see how she plans to make it not only survive, but thrive. So, Mary Beth?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. I love the League of Women Voters. I know we've done voter registrations and movies together, and they've all been fantastic and a lot of fun. You probably already know a lot about the background of what happened to the Sunrise because a lot of you have been with us throughout this whole ordeal. When it first hit, we had a whole array of programs scheduled at the Sunrise, and Riverdance was a sold-out show that was going to happen the very next day. We agonized over whether we should close it down and delay it, or whether we should go ahead and have it because the state had not closed things down yet. And we made the decision to cancel the program, thinking we were delaying it for, I don't know, 2-4 weeks, that, how long could this possibly go on? So we canceled that and immediately started projects at the Sunrise like scrubbing and painting and thinking we were going to have a short time to get everything spick and span and then welcome everybody back in. And as time went on, we realized we had to be in it for the long haul. Because we are a community theater and our whole goal is to serve the community, we immediately, meeting the staff and the board, we immediately sat down and said, what can we still do for the community even while we're shut down? We can't let anyone in our building. We're not even allowed in the building, but what can we still be doing? So we started our marquees. I don't know if you guys remember seeing the marquee messages we would put on every couple of days. One side said, we're all in this together. And then the other side would be humorous movie quotes that were very applicable to the time, like always look on the bright side of life, and life is like a box of chocolates, and we're going to need a bigger boat. I mean, just a bunch of things. And the community would start emailing in suggestions and then get all excited when they'd see their quote up there. And we'd give them a free tub of popcorn for it. We started doing outdoor curbside concessions because people weren't allowed in the theater, but we could serve concessions. We just started scrambling to do anything we could to keep the community engaged and entertained. And then as things started to ease up with outside, we went through a series of weeks of approvals to be permitted to use our outdoor green space, the space next to the theater. And because we have a liquor license, we had to get state approval, we had to get town approval, we had to get county approval, and it took numerous weeks. And then we started doing things like the marketplace and outdoor movies because we couldn't have a drive-in, but we could show movies outside. We borrowed and stole a lot of ideas from other areas, other countries, by deciding to paint circles on the green space so that people would have their safe place to sit. And so when you would come to a movie, you would sit in your little circle, and you were allowed to remove your mask, but you could sit in your circle to watch your movie. The big thing that we learned through all of this is that there was no plan. There was no blueprint we could look at of what other people had done to survive a pandemic, right? So as a theater, we just had to reinvent ourselves every day. We would try to come up with have brainstorm sessions and try to come up with any crazy ideas we could think of and then test them out. We agreed that we would not be afraid to fail. We would tweak things as we went. We would drop things that didn't go. And so we just kept developing more and more ideas. That is the biggest lesson we learned, is that you can't say ever, that's not how we do things here, because there was no how do we do things here planned for us. So we eventually, the theaters were allowed to reopen at minimal capacity. And we thought, okay, we'll be done with the outdoor movies because they were a lot of work. People enjoyed them, but they were a lot of work. And everyone will just come back into the theater. And we showed our first movie and basically nobody showed up. So we thought, okay, so indoor isn't comfortable for people. What can we do to make it more comfortable? And then we went back into doing outdoor movies again. And we would talk to people as they came to the outdoor movie, and they said they just feel safer in the outdoor space, and they are dying to come back into the theater, but they're not ready for it yet. So then we started doing things like, how can we make them more comfortable? We did a lot of research on health and safety for inside the theater, like special HVAC system adjustments, different cleaning systems. We bought one of those foggers. So now every time anyone is in the theater, we now go through and do a complete sanitation process. We started doing private rentals and private screenings of movies because people wanted to come back to the theater, but they didn't want to be in the theater with other people. So they felt comfortable if they planned a party and they knew the people they were coming to the theater with, they would come in and watch the movie with them. So we've been doing pretty much daily private rentals now, where people come and watch a movie in the theater. It's been a saving grace for us, not so much financially, but our spirits, if that makes sense. That when we're at the theater, our whole life is to entertain people. And when nobody's coming, it's pretty sad. So as people start coming we had a 16-year-old's birthday party last night, and the mother and father were like overjoyed that they got to do something normal for their child. We had a couple come for a date night. They didn't want to be in the theater with anybody else, so they rented the whole place for just the two of them to watch The Notebook. They left almost in tears because they said it was a feeling of normalcy. We had somebody celebrate their 85th birthday, and they handpicked the 40 guests that they would bring who they knew would still wear masks, because masks are still 100% required at the theater. So anyway, I'm babbling, but it's just been a lot of fun to bring a lot of people in in their comfort zone and show a movie and have them leaving happy and smiling and talking to each other. We still have a lot of COVID restrictions on us. Masks are 100% required everywhere. You're allowed to temporarily remove it while you eat your popcorn, then it has to go right back on. I know you guys were at the doing your voter registration for a marketplace, and you saw some of the issues we have with trying to get people to wear masks outside. They think that you can't catch COVID outside, but when you're shopping in close proximity in a booth, you can still catch COVID. And we got called a lot of names. A lot of very nasty names. So we tried to roll with it, you know, and the goal was to keep the staff motivated and not abused and healthy and off of unemployment, really. The theater has very high overhead because we're an old building and things are constantly breaking. Our insurance is astronomical, our utilities are astronomical. So we have to always be looking, how can we pay for at least the bare essentials and keep people off of unemployment and entertain the community. So it's a real balancing act for us. Through all of this, the people have said, please don't stop doing the outdoor movies. So we've really learned, we've had to learn how to adjust to COVID, but we've learned of other things that the community wants that we didn't even know existed, like Marketplace. A lot of those businesses had nowhere to go to sell their things because so many festivals were canceled. And so they still need the Marketplace, even when COVID's gone. We're going to keep it going as long as they want it. People are loving the outdoor movies, the families get to come together. So we're going to keep doing it. So we learned a lot of things and invented a lot of new projects and activities here that even after COVID is over, we're going to keep them going as long as the community still wants them. We continue to offer the indoor and outdoor options for people, and outdoor is still more popular unless it's the private rental, but we're in it for the long haul, and our goal is to make sure that this community theater that has been around for, you know, the building was built in 1898, but the theater's been here since 1940, and we want it to be here in, you know, 2040, and it's not going to go down on our watch. That's our main thing. We're keeping it alive. The issues we face now are studios are not releasing movies or not releasing a lot of good movies. And it'd be like having a store and having no product to put in it. So we're trying to find the best movies we can or resort to the classics because the classics are always great, and keep it alive. So we're just staying flexible and trying anything we can and take the risk. Oh, one thing I should tell you, the upstairs space, which is used to be the yoga studio, we've been spending a lot of time renovating it and turning it into a micro theater. So it'll be another place where you can go and have meetings and meals, and then enter a little room that will seat 25 people for a private movie in the future. So that'll be opening up in March too. Another thing to try. Do you guys have any questions for me, or I don't know your process?
Thank you. Mary Beth, so much. I think what we're going to do is look to the chat room for questions, or maybe point questions towards each presenter at the end rather than now. Our next speaker is Deshawn Russell, who is the founder and CEO of Southern Elegance Candle Company. As a relatively new business, I'm sure she's had quite a challenging time during this epidemic. She describes herself as a true soul. She grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and
we lost her.
Agnes, we lost you. I don't
That's
know.
okay. I'll pick up. I will pick up
Okay,
where
hi,
she left off.
Deshawn.
Hey, how y'all
Sorry,
doing?
sorry, your got cut. Your introduction got cut off, but
Hey, it's
we're thrilled
perfectly,
to
it
have
is.
you.
Yes, thank you so much. Like she was saying, my name is Deshawn Russell, and I'm the owner of Southern Elegance Candle Company. We are located in Rayford, so we are right next door to Moore County. I have been in business. This is my 5th year in business. So when COVID hit last year, it was truly, truly, truly challenging. And there was a long time that I just did not think that we were going to survive. So our main business is selling candles to mom and pop boutiques. So we were in a lot of probably 400 or 500 mom and pop boutiques all over the United States. And that was, great for us. And then when COVID hit and all of these mom and pop boutiques had to shut down, our line of business pretty much dried up. So we had to make a pivot. So in March, we basically had to shut down the whole shop, and I had to send everyone home because all of our mom and pop boutiques basically shut down. And so I was still coming and filling in a few of the online orders that we were getting. But I was in here like rent, light, phone, cable, insurance. Like there is no way like 1 or 2 orders coming in through the website is going to be enough to keep us in business. So I sat down and I had to come up with a plan. Basically, everybody was sitting at home shopping because I didn't have anything else to do. So we pivoted from focusing on going to mom and pop boutiques to going direct to our consumer. So we really got active on social media. We started telling our story more about why we created Southern Elegance, what it was all about, which is, Southern living, Southern culture, Southern agriculture. It's about community. It's about bringing people together. I was the founder. I'm 50, so I was 49 at the time. So it was like I was an older lady going through a midlife crisis. So that appealed to a lot of people because, like, I mean, if you can quit your job at 45 and survive a pandemic and run a business, like people were just fascinated with that whole story and do it like literally, y'all. We are in the sticks. There ain't nothing around us but a bunch of trees. When people say, "Where are you?" I'll be like, "Honey, just drive. You're gonna see some trees and then a warehouse. We're the warehouse, but turn quick because it's more trees on the other side of us." So, if you can do it in these types of conditions, it's just a very fascinating story. So we really started focusing on going direct to our consumer via our website and really, really, really pushing the brand's message about building community and we're all in this together. And then we had the George Floyd riots like throughout the United States, when a lot of people were upset about that. And so our message about building community really started resonating with a lot of people. And from there, we just kind of were able to build steam. I think because, well, it's kind of 2-part, mainly because we're in the South, and sometimes when people think about living in the South, they think about all of the negative stuff associated with it. And then here I was just talking about all of the great stuff about living in the South and how we really are in this together. And it's not about all of the differences that set us apart, but it's more about all of the things that are bringing us together. And then our candles are fabulous and the scents are fabulous. And it just kind of grew. And I was eventually able to bring my original team back one by one. And then we got a shout out from a major influencer on social media, which I didn't even really know how that thing worked. And man, once she gave us that shout out and gave us that platform and really introduced our brand to her followers, it just took off from there. And we've had like great success from there. That put us in front of Good Morning America, Tory Burch, the view. So we have partnerships with all of those people. We were able to get a partnership with City Trends. So that level of exposure was something that we weren't anticipating, and just really exploded and elevated the company.
Thank you, Deshawn. That was a very inspiring message and very informative. Thank you so much.
you.
Our next guest is Katrin Lincoln, who is the proprietor of Bump and Baby in Pinehurst and Piggy & Co. in Southern Pines. Katrin is a Southern Pines native and has experienced firsthand our county's positive growth over the last several years, especially with the growing military community, the ever-expanding curation of our hospitality and golf industries, and the award-winning college programs. She is deeply invested in protecting, encouraging, and providing resources for the families and the small businesses that basically keep our neighborhoods thriving. She opened her first store, which was Bump and Baby, in 2015. She said with the help of many mentors, including the SCORE Business Series through the Sandhills Community College Business Center. One might have wondered how a Bump and Baby store would fare in what is considered kind of a retirement community. But I think if you went into the store, you would see the thought and the imagination that has gone into it, and you would understand how it has done so well. And it did so well that she opened her second store, Piggy & Co. in Southern Pines in 2019. So she kind of knows what she's doing. Katrin has sat on the board of Pinehurst Business Partners, the village's nonprofit business administration, as president since 2016. And we are pleased now to hear from Katrin.
Hi, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Cool. Those are some tough acts to follow. I sort of wrote notes about what I wanted to talk about, but the first thing that stands out is that everyone sort of has a similar vibration. That what Mary Beth is speaking to is, okay, what does our community need and how am I uniquely positioned to solve this? And Deshawn says, okay, what does my community need and how am I uniquely positioned to solve this? And that's really cool to me that all four of us ultimately today will have incredibly different stories, but incredibly similar vibrations of where am I positioned in the community and what exactly can I do to solve that? Funny anecdote about how a maternity shop would do in Pinehurst. I was laughed out of every single bank when I was trying to get a business loan. Every single bank in the region looked at my business plan and lovingly laughed me out of the office. And so it is sort of nice now, 5 years later, to be like, well, it's okay, you were looking at numbers on a piece of paper and you're looking at demographics and that's your job and that's completely fine, but we're boots on the ground, right? Mary Beth, Deshawn, we're boots on the ground. You know what your community needs. You know where there's a unique opportunity to make money and solve a problem. And so they were wrong. So I'll start with just some quick notes that I said, but basically that's the gist of it. Is I think it's really interesting that everyone really dug down deep and asked themselves the following questions is what I asked myself. What is right for the people I love? So what does my community need? What is right for me? What role am I going to play? And then what am I comfortable with? And then in a spiritual sense, certainly the question that popped up is what challenges me? Because there's also a lot of room for growth in that. What are maybe some things we hadn't thought of doing before, like outside movies that were a challenge that ended up being a slam dunk, right? Or this Instagram influencer thing. Social media is really, really intimidating and it wasn't something that you had to think about before. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's my in and this is how I'm gonna solve this problem. So we can get pretty technical about like the economic education piece, where our money comes from. I'm excited to hear from our next speaker being involved with resort, which is such a big tax generator for our county. But this is really a conversation about maybe the similar struggles, personal struggles and community successes. I like the way Deshawn said that basically there's really just a lot of positive things to talk about Moore County. And how I saw in a big way, I think we can all say we've seen a little bit, but I saw the proof in the pudding of we are in it together. Those are some big buzzwords that I think people always say, oh, I support small business. Oh, we're in it together. Oh, community over competition. I saw it hammered in for real for the first time in 2020 like a rocket. people went out of their way incredibly to shop and support local. They waited in line. They waited in line outside. They bought tickets online. They really went out of their way to support us and support the community that we support. Because supporting a small business is really about supporting our stewardship of the community and tax dollars, right? So the buzzword is pivoting, which seems like sort of what this entire conversation is about. How did we pivot in our unique businesses? And so I think retail is pretty similar. I'll say, well, back to my introduction. So I opened my business to support my town, the women and the families in it. I'm still to this day the only maternity and nursing shop in the county, which I thought was interesting. We do a lot of the Leche League support. We do a lot of peer-to-peer support group. We're the only place to get bras. We're the only place to get any of that stuff. And if any of you have been here for more than 20 or 30 years, you realize the changing demographic of this county and how the families have really, really changed. Brought in housing developments, brought in schools. I mean, who remembers when we didn't have a Starbucks? Okay, and now we have apartment complexes everywhere and schools everywhere. So let's give them what they need because they're giving us what we need by supporting our county by moving here. If any of you own a business or love someone who is crazy enough to open a business, you know that it's already relentless struggles. And so people ask me, what was the hardest part about 2020? And I'm like, nothing. It's just more unpreparedness. We were hit with a lot of things we didn't understand, and we just had to hook in together and ask a lot of questions. But I cannot say, although it was the most absurd year that I've ever been in business, it was not the toughest. 2015 and 2016 might have been the toughest because I was owning a business with no financial support. On my own. My friends worked for free. They volunteered hours for me. I had to keep a full-time job myself the first 2 years that I also owned a brick and mortar. So COVID was the weirdest, but maybe not necessarily the most difficult, just the most different. I think what challenged me the most, and probably how we all feel, is that we were so unprepared. It's so easy to look at your year and say, this is what we do, and this is how we do it, and this is the one thing I want to do differently. Okay, that whole whiteboard had to get erased, and you had to start all over. You had to figure out immediately, like within one day, how you were going to survive, how you were going to do this. So I think that's the toughest, was knowing that it was unprecedented, we're unprepared, no one knows what to do, and everyone feels that way at the same time. Consumers didn't know what to do, vendors didn't know what to do, Hollywood's not making movies, stores aren't open, manufacturers aren't making stuff, etc., except for Deshaun, because you're uniquely positioned to own your own manufacturing company so you could push forward. Where some of the people made in Hong Kong, I'm still waiting on an order from Hong Kong from last year. So the saying is, luck is opportunity meeting preparation. And I certainly like to be prepared, being type A OCD. So this experience was actually incredibly healing for me because it expelled my perceived need to have perceived control. We can lose control, ask for help, and still come out on top. We can come to our friends and neighbors and say, I'm screwed and I need your help. Help me brainstorm this. And here we are having a discussion panel about the successes of this instead of the disaster of this, which is really wonderful. I very quickly, you just read every executive order, you figure out what you legally can and cannot do, which is different for every business. I scoured the internet, I called the state, you call the county. And I learned very quickly that we were allowed to do private shopping appointments. Of course, you can still do website orders. Talk about being uniquely positioned. My street is a one-way street with a one-way parking lane. So I just went to the town and I said, I really need some help. We need to turn this into a curbside pickup drive-through only. Done. So every 15 minutes I could schedule drive-through pickups. Every hour I did private shopping appointments. You can do masks required. You can clean after everywhere, and you can clean hangers. You can clean dressing rooms, and the feedback was really interesting. More people, I did more money in private shopping appointments because people felt more comfortable being one-on-one than they would at TJ Maxx or Walmart. I don't know if you could pay me to go to Walmart right now, but I absolutely trust my small business friends, the way that they clean, the way that we saw them over just years take care of their space, and that we know that they could disinfect and require masks and follow all the rules. Certainly we can control the flow of traffic a lot easier. You know, small shops might only get 1 or 2 people in there at a time anyway. So again, I think these were blessings to us. People came to me all the time. And I mean, my shopping appointments were longer. I started earlier and I had to end later to get families taken care of. The biggest change was I saw the types of things moms were shopping for. Went from fun and frivolous, like the clothing and toys and stuffed animals, to incredibly practical, because again, either those companies were no longer manufacturing things like cases and cases of diapers, or again, you couldn't pay me to go to Walmart. So people were getting really creative about where can I go to get things. For example, there's a store in town called Purple Thistle, and it's a kitchen and gourmand store. And her wine sales went through the roof because they'd rather shop her than Harris Teeter. Or her pots and pan sales went through the roof because people were stuck at home cooking. They wanted new stuff, but they weren't going to go to TJ Maxx. So really interesting that people got creative about the way that they were willing to source goods. It's easy to talk about now, but the reality was 11 employees were taken off the schedule. I worked both shops alone. Sales were 25% of what we expected. And secretly, I picked up a part-time job at Nature Zone because she's a grocery store and she needed people. So I worked for her 4 hours a day. And then I booked the private shopping appointments for the stores, and then did delivery runs and mailbox runs and post office runs, and friends of mine volunteered to do the post office drops and the mailbox drops. It's interesting that Mary Beth mentioned that Hollywood isn't really making or sending out movies. I resonated with that because retail is kind of the same. So retail runs about 9 to 10 months ahead of schedule. So let's say you go to New York, which we didn't, right, in January, to order and pay for merchandise that will not ship until September or October, which meant that in March, April, May of 2020, I was getting $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 drop shipped of merchandise that I had ordered the year previous. And I think this is the time frame where we saw a lot of businesses maybe just decide to close, because how can you stomach that decision? You're here in the store alone. You have one customer scheduled for today. You're working a part-time job at a grocery store, and FedEx shows up with a pallet of merchandise that you either take it with the hope and the knowing that you're going to be in business in 6 months and can sell this merchandise, or you don't. And that's a very deep, very personal, and very spiritual question that I think every business owner and every business manager asks themselves. What decision am I going to make today that inherently and intimately affects where I think we're going to be in 6 months? I just went for it and hoped that it would all shake out in the end. That was it. 40 grueling days passed. We were allowed to open on May 10th at half-mast, and business has been very steady ever since then. I think what happened was that 40 days recalibrated us to, yes, please go out of your way to shop local. It taught us the strengths of small business, the money that we provide for the county, the way that we support school and school systems and families, nonprofit programs, how we donate constantly to our community. Back to stewardship is like a big word that I've been hearing over the past year. Is you shop in a small business, you pay $10 for a book. What you're really doing is asking them to be a steward of your $10, because they're going to go donate to a PTA. They're going to go support the Sunrise Theater. They're more likely to spend that $10 in another small business. So your $10 now flows all over the county and supports every business all over the county instead of Amazon. And so something I've been talking about a lot with Pinehurst Business Partners, Laura Douglas is probably laughing because she's like, I just heard this the other day. You invested in your house and your community for a reason. wherever you bought or wherever your kids go to school or the school system that you picked was a personal decision for you. And it's interesting to research the trickle down effect of how that $10 purchase at a bookshop locally owned affects your school system and your roads and whether or not you get traffic lights and the nonprofit businesses in your community. So if you've already invested in Moore County, I would strongly suggest that you shop Moore County because Moore County is what's keeping your property value home and your school system safe. And you get personal service. You get to meet people like us and connect and have community. That's it, my loves. Thank you.
This is all so truly inspiring, and I hope you all are keeping up with the questions in the chat room. Really good response so far. And we've heard from people running small businesses. We're going to pivot here a little bit. And now we're going to hear Bailey. Laura is the fine dining operations manager at the resort. She's the assistant to the director of food and beverage. He is responsible for all resort side dining, which includes 2 fine dining restaurants, 3 casual dining restaurants, in-room dining, coffee shops, all special events hosted by food and beverage. And she manages the private residences and any events that they have there at the resort. So, Laura, could you give us your view?
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. It's truly an honor to be here, and it's quite interesting to listen to a local business owner's take versus, you know, I work for one of the largest employers in Pinehurst and in the area. And although we are a large business owner, we were greatly impacted through this pandemic. Early March, mid-March last year, we were forced to, in essentially one day, temporarily lay off 1,200 of our employee partners. And for a leader of that company, that's a tough day. It's a tough day to watch your employee partners walk away and know that they're probably going to be struggling as well. Fortunately for the resort, golf was able to go on. It was deemed a recreational sport that was able to continue. So that helped the resort stay open and thriving through this pandemic. So we were able to continue receiving the income from golf and membership. And unfortunately, all of the hotels had to shut down. Which all of the restaurants had to shut down as well. But we were able to keep one of our restaurants open, Pinehurst Brewing Company. And I find that Pinehurst Brewing Company has a special tie to the local community. And although it is part of our resort dining, it's more casual and it's more approachable to the local community. So we were able to keep that open for takeout dining and curbside pickup, keeping our local community safe in that regard. But we also had to be very sensitive because we are one of the biggest employers in the community. And we didn't necessarily want to take away from the local restaurant business owners either. So we just had to be very sensitive in that regard. And that really just changed our entire business model. We went from formal dining to takeout dining, and making that change was huge. It was huge on a IT level. We had to create new systems in order to accomplish the takeout and delivery curbside pickup options. So that was an interesting challenge for us. But I would say Pinehurst did an exceptional job throughout the entire shutdown. We, as I mentioned earlier, we laid off 1,200 of our employees, but each week we worked very hard. We filled bags of food to hand out every week to every employee partner that was laid off. We created fundraising activities also to financially help those employee partners that were laid off. Pinehurst was able to continue paying for the employees' health benefits, so that would not be a concern or a hardship on those employee partners. So I would say Pinehurst did an exceptional job taking care of their employees, and we're a large enough company and lucky enough to be able to do that. So that was really nice to be able to see the support efforts for the employee partners. And as mentioned earlier, we were able to return and reopen our hotels at the end of May. But still, that was a very difficult time because we weren't quite sure what kind of business we were going to be seeing with all of the restrictions that we had against us. And we were only allowed to bring back about 400 employees at that time. And so backtrack a year ago, we had 1,400 employees, and now we're operating with 400 employees, and that presented its challenges on its own. And ultimately, we were able to bring back just over 1,000 of our employees, which was fabulous. But again, permanently laying off 400 employees was a very tough day, tough decisions to make. Prior to the shutdown, much of our business, about 60% of our business, was group or convention business. And then upon returning, we essentially lost all of that group business due to indoor restrictions and gatherings and whatnot. So we worked really hard, and I've heard pivot a lot through these presentations, and we've had to pivot, and we've had to really step outside our comfort zone, step outside our box, and really brainstorm on how does this change our business. And essentially, we went from a 60% group business, 40% social business, and turned that completely around, where currently our business model is about 80% social business. And believe it or not, we opened our doors and the hotel filled up quickly. But that presented its challenges when you're filling a hotel with 500 people and you only have 300 seats within your restaurants because you're at 50% capacity. We had to become very creative with outdoor dining options, in-room dining options, where folks didn't want to necessarily be within the restaurants, but they wanted to come and enjoy a nice trip at Pinehurst Resort. So we had to become very creative in the way that we operated our restaurants. Our mission was obviously first and foremost to keep our employee partners safe while they're at work, exposed to the public. And then secondly, we worked hard to keep our guests safe as well. And we went into sanitation efforts and in the food and beverage industry. It's a very clean and sanitary environment, but we had to really step up our game in that regard into sanitation. Menus were now on QR codes and training the public on how to use those QR codes. This was new technology for us. Menus are now one-time use menus. My beautiful restaurants and beautiful dining rooms with tablecloths and beautiful glassware and place settings now are completely empty. So you're walking into this very cold environment, and how do you turn that around to entertain the guests that have spent so much money to come and enjoy the resort? So it's been challenging, but at the same time, it's been fun. I think a lot of times we've become stagnant within our business models, and we stopped thinking outside the box. We stopped challenging ourselves. And this has forced us to think outside the box, to challenge ourselves, to have fun with the business again, and just to create new ideas. And it's, as many of you said, it's been a challenging year, but it hasn't been the most challenging year. There's been plenty others, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to come. But we've all stuck together. I'm so proud of the local community. I'm proud of Pinehurst Resort. And I think just in conclusion, this has really just challenged us to rethink the way we operate our business and really rethink the way we move throughout daily life as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Really appreciate that. Jay, do you want to walk through some of the questions in the chat room? They've been being answered by our presenters, but I think that there are a few we could highlight.
Sure. Yeah, thank you guys. It's really inspirational. Somebody else said that too, and makes me proud to be a woman. So Mary Beth, I think maybe some of these have been answered, but I'm going to call them out anyway. And I'm also going to read the other comments. During the outside movies, are you limiting the number of people who can attend?
Absolutely. Normal capacity out there is 400 to 500, and during COVID, we have limited to 100 max, and that is greatly reduced by the number. We paint circles on the grass, and you can seat up to 4 people in a circle, but we don't put strangers with you. So for example, if you come to a movie and it's just you and a friend, you get a circle and we don't put the 2 extra people. So it's a lot of algebra and we figure it out, but it ends up being somewhere between 50 and 100 people at each movie. Masks are required all the time, except when you're seated in your circle. So we still add the extra layer of protection.
Okay, good. We have a shout out to you from Tina Gannis, who is the head of our healthcare committee, saying the Sunrise is taking good care of our mental health with those online movies too. Maybe you can say something about the online movies.
Okay, those are virtual movies. So that was something that came to us when we first were shut down, that studios that were releasing films made them available for us to show through a computer. Basically, it's a streaming service for theaters. And you know, the studios were in a bind too. They wanted their movies to be seen. So we will put links on our website. And when you watch a movie, the studio still shares the money with us. So for example, if you watch a movie in the theater, the studio takes usually 55 to 65% of your ticket price and then gives us the rest. For a virtual movie, they split it 50-50. So you watch a movie for $10, your whole family can watch that one thing. You hook your computer up to a TV and you're watching it on a bigger screen, and they share that 50-50 with us. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it was still something to help us get through. And I'm a movie fanatic, so I've watched them all.
Question for Deshawn. I think you answered this in the chat, but maybe you want to talk about it a little bit anyway, Deshawn. How many employees were you able to hire back?
So when COVID hit, I had about 6 employees. So I was able to slowly bring back all of the employees. And then when we got the shout out from the influencer and business exploded, I've hired 15 new employees. So we have a total of 21 that come into the building. And then we have about 4 more that are remote, like a digital marketing specialist, the bookkeeper, the photographer, graphic artists, photographers. So we have about 25 people that are on payroll every single month. So we are also, someone else asked about, did we have a store in the, do we have a store? We don't have a store right now because we're just in a manufacturing space, but we will be moving into our new production facility sometime in the fall. It's a $1.4 million, 15,000 square foot building. And so we're going to have a store in the front of the production facility. And then we're like going to do tours and stuff for the community. So we're really excited about that new building.
Okay, I'll be there. So yeah, then there are lots of, congratulations, awesome. We're so excited for you. And then you put your link to your website, which is great. Thank you for doing that. A lot more congratulations. Joe Nicholas was in.
The one question that I haven't, the one question I have not seen people answer. Have any of you I assume that some of you had to deal with employees who contracted the virus. Could some of you address that? How you dealt with that?
So for
Laura, you
us,
probably had the most.
yeah, so for us, we haven't had anyone to come down with COVID. We had a couple of people that were around people that tested positive, and before they're able to come back to work, they have to get a negative COVID test. But I'm really, really clear about, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I might not look 50, but I am 50. So I am in the population that is, you know, at risk of being incredibly sick. And quite frankly, our staff here, if you ever look at our social media, is very diverse. We have people on staff literally from 18 to 65. So we have grandmothers that work for us. And so we've really impressed upon keeping your circle tight and taking necessary precautions. So when you come to work every day and you see the people that are at risk, it makes you a little bit more cognizant, you know, when you're out in public. So far, all of my younger employees have taken the necessary precautions so that they don't come down with. So we've been very, very lucky so far.
And Laura?
Oops.
And
wrong
yes,
button.
for us here at the resort, upon returning to work, each of our employee partners signed off on an employee health agreement. And that basically gives them restrictions in regards to if they're exposed to somebody, how many days they need to be out of work. And if they are tested positive, obviously there's a lengthened time out of work and whatnot. We have been very, very, very lucky, and we've only had a couple positive COVID cases at the resort, and that's resort wide. And those cases were not community spread. We believe those cases were picked up outside of work in their own social circles. And thankfully, they did not bring it to work, did not spread. So we're very strict in regard to, if you have a cough, you cannot come to work. If you have a headache and certain symptoms, we ask that you do not come to work. And of course, that presents its challenges when we're already short-staffed, and then we have folks that are unable to work due to those restrictions. But we've worked through them, and I think this is another positive change for our industry personally, just because it is a tough industry, and sometimes we push ourselves to work through illnesses that we shouldn't push ourselves to work through. And this has really stopped us from doing that. And it's made you take your time off and take care of yourself.
Thank you.
I think we've addressed, I just have one question for myself, and a couple of you have noted in the chat that you've received PPP loans. I'm not exactly sure what that stands for, and I wonder if somebody could answer that, perhaps Katrin?
I sure can. I just had to unmute.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to understand in the beginning. I think the same way we were all trying to figure out what the heck was going on, both as consumers and business owners and managers and leaders, the banks and even the SBA were trying to figure out very rapidly what they could do, how they could do it. And then of course, best laid plans, you have to find a way to execute whatever harebrained thing you come up with. So the government already has a program, I think through the SBA, called Emergency Disaster Something Loan and Grant Program. And that's in existence all the time. I didn't know anything about it, unfortunately, until COVID came, but I learned after the fact, so grumble, grumble, that some of our businesses impacted by Hurricane Florence 2 years ago that decimated us. Bailey's nodding, thank you. FEMA gave out money for that. If you had to close for that, you could have gone to this SBA EDIL something website. And if the federal government had deemed your state or county a disaster disaster because of weather, acts of God, whatever, then there was money in the coffers for that. And of course, no one knew anything about that. I just found that page accidentally while I was searching for the EDIL for this. So PPP is a new program that the SBA launched in response to COVID called the Payroll Protection Program. And its entire initiative was to keep people employed for obvious reasons. If we can keep the businesses open, even part-time, then we can keep money coming to families, we can keep insurance benefits, we can sort of try to find a way to white knuckle along. So Payroll Protection Program was a protocol launched pretty quickly. I think most of us got our loan deposits like late March, early April, I feel like. Based off of our payroll. So it's not size of business, it's not income, it's not land you own. It's literally, they took payroll reports. They figured out a percentage of your payroll, what payroll taxes do you pay, and then they loaned you back a percentage of the payroll taxes that you paid. And then we've just been sitting on that information. I was going to say within a week ago or two is when First Bank called me and said, okay, now they're ready to start taking applications for something called the forgiveness application. So because this has gone on much longer than anyone expected, a lot of businesses are able to convert that loan into a grant. If you can prove that that loan was used for payroll to keep your employees employed, if you can prove that it was used for rent and utilities, etc., then you submit that documentation and the SBA approves partial or completely, depending on how much or little you were given in the first place, turns that into a grant. And so I think that's the stage of the game we're in now, as those forgiveness applications are coming around. There's also a second round of PPP because some businesses were impacted much differently. All of us were able to pivot in some way, but there's some businesses that were not, or that their pivot's a very short-term fix. I keep picking on Mary Beth, but you're going to be doing those outdoor movies forever, right? Because it's my date night. It's all I do every Friday now. So you can't stop that. But some people's pivot was incredibly time specific. They could only do something for so long before their customer was no longer interested in doing it. So the second round of PPP is also launching this week, last week, the week before. The rules are much more strict. It's still payroll based, but your sales had to have dipped 25% year over year. So they really want to prove that you were really in a crunch and that you really knuckled through and you really stayed open and you're really invested in your community. So that is the Payroll Protection Program.
It's okay to pick on us because we did have a 85% reduction in our revenue. So yeah, it was rough for us. And the outdoor movies were wonderful, but instead of having 2 staff members work for 3 hours, we had 5 staff members work for 5 hours. And every time it rained, the studios still wanted their $250 or $500 for a movie that we couldn't show. So yeah, it was. It's been a rough year financially for us.
Well, thanks to all 4 of you and to Agnes and Marcy for setting it up and getting in touch with these inspirational women. And the 4 words that I heard a lot were pivot, creative, having to get creative, having it be a challenge, and surprisingly that it was fun. I think all of you had said, you know, yeah, it was a challenge, but there was a little bit of fun in there too. So thanks very much. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Joan now, and we're going to have our regular business meeting at this point. So thanks, you guys.
Okay, thank you all for joining, and I hope you'll stay for our business meeting, because it's actually more than business today, because similar to our speakers today, we have exceptional teams of women working to keep the League of Women Voters Moore County alive. And in our business meeting, we're going to be talking to you about a lot of the events and things that we still have going on. And of course, one of our biggest is our, and we wanted to keep it alive, is our Lunch with Legends. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Mary Lou Burnett, who will tell us more about our virtual Lunch with Legends this year. Mary Lou. Is Mary Lou with us?
I'm here. I didn't
Okay.
unmute. Great program. Really, really enjoyed all four of them. That was really informative. And Laura from the pilot, welcome. Happy to have you. Lunch with Legends is going. It's running. We're really moving along. We now have a menu. Our carton cuisines is going to have deluxe turkey wrap, and we are calling them sauteed potato slices, also known as chips, and nice big cookie. And those are available for $25 a piece. We're working with the Women's Exchange, the Sandhills Women's Exchange in Pinehurst. So be sure that I am getting ready this week, and we'll be sending out letters to probably about 70% of our customers from last year with all the information in it, just to let them know that we are having a virtual Legends presentation this year, that we have not given up the project and to hang with us. And I'm asking them to contact the people that they bought their tickets from last year for more information, or of course to call or contact Rose. Rose is how we're going to handle that. Our treasurer, send your money to her. She in turn will send you an email with information on how to get your lunch and where to get it and how all that's going to work. I'm also going to send out letters this week to everyone who advertised in our booklet, our program for last year, giving them an opportunity to donate whatever they would like to be a sponsor, and we will feature their name of their business or their name or whatever on both the front and the first and ending slide. And I'm asking that money be sent to me, because Tom will put the slides together, so then we'll have all the information and I'll get the money to Rose. We have reached back into our archives, and we are redoing 2 of our former legends. When I look at the people in the picture here, I see there really are quite a few of you who were not here in 2009, or at least league members, or in 2011. So these may be new presentations for you. We're going to do Abigail Adams, who was originally presented in 2009 at our inaugural event, and Mary Price did Abigail. And we're going to do, and I was very hesitant about this, but kind of got talked into it, we're going to do Frances Perkins. And Frances was done in 2011, and I was the presenter. That's why I was hesitant to do it. But Tom and I sat down. We had to send our tapes away and have them turned into digital files. And so when we got them back, and we sat down with a cocktail and hooked them into the TV so they're big and could watch them together, and we watched all 6 of them and decided that those were the 2 best recordings that would come across the best through what we do. We also captured, and we'll again have him end with a song. He used to do that every single year, and then he got busy and went to other things, but we have him on tape, so we're going to play it. We also will have, of course, the introduction of our 3 scholarship recipients, and I believe we're having a musical presentation from one of our previous scholarship winners. So I think it'll be a good program. I hope that everybody will encourage your customers to not only buy lunch. I am encouraging them in my letters to maybe buy lunch for them and their husbands this time, since they'll be eating at home, maybe a friend to come and watch with them. We're doing it called Zoom at noon, and that's when the presentations will start. Committee members, jump in here if there's anything that I'm forgetting. Of course, details will go out in a blast to all of you, and then when we capture, it does require registration. So anybody who wants to see the program and doesn't buy a lunch will have to register so that we can get them their Zoom link. And that's going to go through either one of the presidents. I'm not sure, Jay or Joan.
Okay, we have 2 questions in the chat, or 2 statements in the chat. Lunch with Legends is on our regular meeting date, our regular time. We would have had it on March 16th. The difference will be that it will be at noon, Zoom at noon. Interesting, good one. And then question is, will we be able to pay for our lunch with Legends tickets via PayPal? Now, we do have a new PayPal system kind of set up, but at this point, since it's so soon, our preference would be that you send a check to the treasurer. Anyone have other information about that? I think that's what we had decided as the committee, to have it paid by check to our treasurer, Rose Powers. Again, as we've said, the details are still being ironed out, and we will get much more information to you. Again, we're excited. It's a challenge, just as these women have said. But we're thinking we have a pretty nice program together. Callie McIntyre, who received the scholarship 2 years ago, is going to actually send us a tape of one of her presentations that she's doing at her college level. So it's kind of exciting to hear back from someone who had a former scholarship as well. Keep in mind, this is our biggest fundraiser, and it goes towards scholarships. So try to encourage friends to kind of, join us, because it will be an exciting day.
Rose, yeah.
Joan, can I just say 2 words? The deadline for the ordering the lunches is Friday, March 5th. It's critical that we stick to that deadline, because the exchange has to know ahead of time. It's not a big restaurant, the number, and also they need to order their food, their boxes, their inventory. So there's no wiggle room on that deadline, because it's not just us that can add 1 or 2 lunches later, but we have a whole restaurant kind of waiting to hear. And we assured them when we spoke to them that they would have all the information up front. So please understand that the deadline is critical. And when you talk to your friends about ordering lunches, it's really important that they order by that Friday.
Okay, thank you, Rose. That's also exciting, our partnership with the Women's Exchange to do this is a nice adventure for us. And we're so thankful for them for willing to do this for us. So again, that timing is important. Jay?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to insert here too that we are going to be accepting angel donations from anyone. That's something that we've done in the past, and it's really going to help fund these scholarships. 100% of any kind of donation goes to scholarships. So there'll be more information coming out about that, but I just wanted to mention that.
Also, there was a big thing about it in the newsletter. So if you haven't opened your newsletter that Terry sent out over the weekend, please, there's a lot more information and details about Legends in there. And please don't hesitate to email me or call me if you have any questions. This is all new to everybody. I understand that. The most important thing about all of this, not only in selling our lunches and making our scholarship money, but is to keep it alive. When something goes away, it's really hard sometimes to get it back. And I have in my letters, and my news release that will go out this week, I have commented that we intend to go back to normal next year at the members club with 2 brand new Legends, if we assuming everybody gets their shots and everybody's healthy and we're released from what I call bondage. So I know things will come up after a meeting today, and I'm here all the time, so don't hesitate to contact me or any of the people.
Mary Lou, I just had one question. What is the timing on picking up the lunches?
I put in there 10 to 11:30. If we're
Okay.
going to start the meeting at noon, that gives our people passing them out time to hopefully get home and dial up. but they'll have them ready to go by noon. And we will be looking for some help. The presidents will be sending out a blast a little bit later. We just found out last week what our menu would be. So we're still a little bit in the feeling this out and learning exactly how we're going to do it on Zoom and that sort of thing. So a little bit closer, I think we'll probably have them send out an email blast to our membership, and then you can spread it on to your customers, a lot of these details. Nancy?
Okay. Another
Mary
question.
Lou, we don't eat meat. Is there any chance of having a veggie sandwich as an option?
No,
I guess I'll make my own lunch. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry. I
That's all right.
understand that, but with that I can turn over to Rose. She's the one that has worked with the Women's Exchange.
Unmute Rose. Rose, you need to unmute.
Sorry, I thought I had. Yeah, we had the conversation. They are small, depending on how many we get. To have two different ones, they weren't that excited about it. So we just stayed with the turkey wrap. You can always take the meat off the wrap.
Make a lettuce and tomato wrap.
And avocado.
Again, Mary Lou, thank you. We have a message in there for all your hard work. Actually, the team has been working real hard together, and I'm looking forward to having this in March. Okay, I'm going to move on to our ACA. The Health Committee has been working, and Holly Powell will tell us more about that.
Thanks so much. This morning's, the things that we heard from the four ladies were very inspiring stories, and especially Deshawn, who actually was able to hire back additional employees once she changed her business model. But we also heard that people were laid off from some of the businesses. And when people are laid off, they often lose their health insurance. Because of COVID and all the people across the country that have been laid off and have lost their insurance, the Biden administration has reopened the health insurance marketplace. And it opened actually yesterday and will be open through May 15th. So anyone across the country can now come to the marketplace and apply as if it's a regular open enrollment period. And we do have navigators across North Carolina available to assist people enroll. I'm actually a navigator. And we're holding those appointments remotely by Zoom or by phone. So I think in the newsletter, you'll see the flyer about the enrollment and how to make an appointment, but I'll also put it in the chat. And if you could just spread the word that we have open enrollment again, and it's 3 months long, and anyone who still needs health insurance can enroll. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Holly. Similar to the women that spoke earlier, the league had to pivot as well, since we knew we weren't going to have our major fundraiser. So I'd like to call on Marcy Katzman, who's been involved with taking charge of the donation cards, the different cards that you can purchase. So Marcy.
Thank you, Joan. We are reintroducing, and I'll try and put it close enough for maybe you to see it if you don't remember, but it was in the newsletter, our donation card. It's a little different. When we introduced this in December, it was partially in honor of the 100-year anniversary of women's right to vote. We're past that now, so the card is focused on a donation to the league and a donation to the Civic Scholarship Fund. And as Joan mentioned, our initiative in December, we earned enough money to just about pay for one of the scholarships. So it was really a kind of a heartwarming experience. And we're hoping we can continue this. And for those of you that don't remember or wonder why you would want to send a donation card, it's, so what it is, and let me just read you what it says on the inside. A special gift has been made to the League of Women Voters of Moore County Civic Leadership Scholarship Fund. And this isn't what you would say, but in honor of Marcy Katzman. So you would put it either in honor or of memory of anybody who you wanted to acknowledge in a special way. The card is $10. Now, if you wanted to send somebody a card because they either graduated from college or had a new child or had a birthday or an anniversary, you would go to Hallmark and you would probably spend $5 on a card and then you would have to mail it. So for $10, you can send a donation card. The league makes about $7 per card and it's through Shutterfly. So Shutterfly often has deals. So sometimes we can make a little more and sometimes not quite so much. And it will be, you have the option of having it just mailed for you from Shutterfly, or it can be sent to you and you can fill it out yourself and mail it. The bottom half is your message of why you're sending the card. So it's very personal. It kind of acknowledges in a special way a certain event, life cycle event, relationship that you have with someone. So you're acknowledging that relationship and you're also acknowledging and supporting the League of Women Voters. This was something that there were a couple of organizations I belonged to before we moved here that had cards, and it was a very fulfilling way for me on many occasions to honor somebody or to pay condolences to someone and have the organization benefit from it. So hopefully we can do it here as well. The newsletter has the link to order the card, but I'll put it in the chat, but you would send an email to LWVMCcards@gmail.com. And actually that would be to me, I have that link. And then we would order the card with the message that you wanted, and we would order the card from there. I don't know if there are any questions, but we can answer them in the chat if you would like, because I don't want to take up too much more time.
Okay, Marcy, just one thing to tell. Oh, I'm sorry. Was someone asking a question? Okay, one more thing, just Marcy, to add. We did the cards for the holidays, and can you tell us approximately how much money we put in the scholarship fund from that?
Well, Rose would know exactly, but it was about $1,000.
Actually, it was a little over 1,200, so it was a little
Okay.
bit more than 1,000. Yeah,
I think, yeah, I think we sold, not sold, but we distributed 130 cards.
Right. I think the cards cost us about $250. I'm rounding, and out of that, the profit was $12.60, $12.40, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay, hopefully you're still on, because you're gonna have to take over again. That's our alarm system. So I'm not sure what's going on in our building. So if you will take over, Jay.
Okay.
Environmental Committee, Shirley Sanderson, major things going on there. Thanks, Shirley.
We will have some special events for Earth Day coming up in April, and we will also have the luncheon program in April, and we're working on our speakers right now, so we're excited about that, and we think everyone will enjoy it.
Okay, I think you guys are coming up with something, a cool idea of maybe doing a walk or something. Is that right? A little hike or something?
That is one of the activities that we're still working on. Marcy has been in contact with an organization that provides that type of activity. And so that would be something that we're planning for that same week that Earth Day occurs, on that weekend following Earth Day.
That would be a lot of fun. And I think, it's a great idea, something a little bit different. And at this time, it's good to be outside.
Exactly.
Thank you. The next thing I was just going to mention a little bit about communications and encourage everybody, if you haven't, to read the newsletter, to look at our website, to, if you do Facebook, like the League of Women Voters Facebook page. We have a pretty limited presence on social media, but if anybody's good at that and wants to do that kind of thing, we would love to have you on the communications committee. And also keep a lookout for the local publications. Things will be publicized there as well, the Pilot and the Pine Times and things like that. And Tina Arno's doing that for us. So thank you for that. Also wanted to mention that we have around this time, this is when the nominating committee for the board starts to get busy. And we're going to have some vacancies. Every year we elect 3 new directors to the board, and there's going to be an opening for president and a vice president too. So if you have any interest in being on the board, let Joan or myself know. Or Ginger Minicello, who is heading up our nominating committee this year. Being on the board, I think it's a lot of fun. It's a way to get to know some really other really great women. And I know I've really personally enjoyed it. That's mostly it that we wanted to go over today. I do want to just draw your attention. I'm going to share my screen here for a second so you can see our upcoming events. So we have the Ruth Pauley lecture series. They both sound really interesting to me. February 18th, this week, we have Bob English, I hope I'm saying that name right, Free Enterprise Solution to Climate Change, a more conservative approach to climate change. And then on March 3rd, Dirk Phillipson will be talking about uncaring growth and the promise of collective well-being, which I think sounds fascinating. I'm going to be sure to tune into that. The Environmental Committee will be meeting on February 22nd. Sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. The DEI Committee is February 24th. We have Fair District Committee on February 26th. Our next board meeting is March 2nd. And then, of course, Lunch with Legends on March 16th. So we've got a lot going on, considering that we're not able to meet in person. And that's it. So if anybody else has anything else that they want to share at this point, now's the time to do it.
Okay, I am back. I just want to let you know, it was just a fire drill and 3 of us were outside. So I don't know if everybody else would burn up in the building, but anyway, it was interesting. Again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone who's working so hard, as I said, to keep the League of Women Voters Moore County going. We're doing wonderful things. So thanks again. And thanks, Jay.
Thanks again to our presenters. I think it was a really wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed listening to the 4 women business people today. So have a good week, everybody.
Is there anything in the chat that we need to answer? Okay. No, it looks like everything's covered. And I do like Mary Lou's serving on the board really helped to learn a lot about the league in general. It's a great experience, and it truly is. So think about it. We'd love to have you.
I might mention that behind Mary Lou is a copy of her book. I just got it, and it's really, really interesting.
May I say something about HCLAT?
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tina.
Our HCLAT group is rebooting per the new administration in Washington. So we're not quite well articulated on our national level goals yet because so much is happening in the past few weeks. But we did meet with the state group. So there are HCLATs in the leagues all over the state, and there is a Piedmont group, a Lower Cape Fear group, and the Charlotte Mecklenburg group. So we are looking to hone our state healthcare goals. And Jay, we've asked Jay if she can help us with a Zoom so that, our local group can get down and dirty with, our local healthcare goals. So we've got a lot of ideas we're kicking around, and a positive incentive is we don't have a lot of meetings. So, there's a whole page in this current newsletter about HCLAT and what we've thought about doing. So, and some of our things are ongoing. So, and they don't require meetings, but we're all about healthcare, and hopefully we'll involve our league very soon. That's it.
Thanks, Tina. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting unless anybody else has anything. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week. See you next month.